I revealed my wife's affair during her surprise birthday party in front of her entire family. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the lighter with a sweaty hand, the smell of wax and frosting thick in the air. The birthday cake, 3 layers, white and gold with pink roses, was already waiting on the dining table, candles unlit. Her sister had just pulled into the driveway and someone yelled, "Lights off!" Like we were all in on some harmless prank. But I wasn't in on anything harmless. There were 17 people packed into our house. Her parents, her 2 brothers, their wives, her cousins, her coworkers, even her old roommate from college had flown in from Phoenix. Every single person who meant something to her was here. That had been the whole idea, a surprise birthday party for her 34th. Except now the surprise wasn't for her. I watched through the blinds as she got out of the Uber, holding the gift bag I knew wasn't for me. Her phone was still in her hand. She was texting someone back. I knew who. I could barely breathe. I didn't want to ruin anyone's night. I really didn't. For the past 3 days, I told myself I'd do this privately. Just us two. Sit her down, show her the screenshots, ask for the truth. But then I'd see her laughing in the kitchen, leaning over the island like nothing had happened, or coming out of the shower wearing my t-shirt like it meant something. I'd look at her and I didn't know who I was looking at anymore. I didn't plan it, not fully. But I didn't stop it either. The door opened and the chorus erupted. Surprise! Everyone popped up from behind furniture and counters, waving confetti wands and phones to capture her reaction. She gasped and covered her face like it was a movie. Then she laughed, the same laugh I used to fall asleep to. My stomach flipped. She hugged her mom first, then her dad, then me. I let her hug me, her arms wrapped around my shoulders and her mouth touched my cheek, and I smelled her perfume up close. Vanilla bourbon or something like that. I used to love that smell. "You pulled this off?" she said. "You?" Laughing. "You can't even keep a Christmas gift secret." I smiled. "Yeah, took some planning." Music started, people started pouring drinks. The energy picked up like nothing was wrong. Her brother put on some old school R&B. Her friends were opening bags of chips and passing around Prosecco. She went upstairs to change out of her work clothes. She was wearing a navy pantsuit from her job at the architecture firm. I followed her up. I had to. "Hey," I said, "real quick." She turned to me in the hallway halfway into our bedroom. "What?" I held up my phone. I'd already opened the message thread. Her name, his name, the date stamp, a picture she'd sent, bare legs under a blanket, captioned, "Still thinking about yesterday." She blinked. "What is that?" "You left your iPad unlocked last week." This is what I saw. Her face didn't change right away, just a blank blink. Then something shut down behind her eyes. "Can we not do this right now?" she whispered. "Please?" "No," I said. "Now's good." She looked behind me toward the stairs. Voices floated up. Someone was already yelling about shot glasses. "I'm begging you," she said. "Not tonight. Please." I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. She went into the bedroom and closed the door. Didn't slam it, didn't cry, just closed it like she needed a minute. I stood there for a while, then went back down. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Her mom asked where she was. "Changing," I said. Her sister joked. "She better not bail on her own party." I walked over to the stereo and turned the music down, and people looked at me. "What's up?" someone said. I cleared my throat. "Hey, can I just say something before we bring out the cake?" People turned. Glasses were still half full. Someone was opening a second bottle of champagne. I felt my heart hammering, but I kept my face straight. "This is awkward," I said, "but I think everyone here should know. Claire and I are going to be separating. There's been someone else." Silence. I looked right at her father when I said it, then at her mom, then at the sister. I didn't say her name again. I didn't say who the other guy was. I didn't have to. No one moved. Her brother finally said, "What are you talking about?" I looked toward the stairs. Claire was standing there now, changed into a green sweater and jeans. Her face was pale. "Babe," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "You want to tell them?" She didn't move. She just stared at me, then at everyone else. Her mom stood up. "What's going on?" I kept going. "I found the text. I've got the photos, the hotel charge. It's not a one-time thing." Someone let out a breath. Someone else sat down hard. Claire stepped down 2 stairs, then stopped again. "I didn't plan to do this like this," I said. "But honestly, I can't sit here pretending anymore. So, happy birthday, Claire." No one laughed. I didn't expect applause or even understanding. But I didn't expect that silence either. Not from this crowd. Claire's family wasn't the quiet type. They were the kind who argued over dessert, who laughed at funerals, who played drinking games at Thanksgiving. But in that moment, nobody said anything. The music had been turned down to a murmur, and the only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock above the pantry door. Claire came the rest of the way down the stairs, slow, careful. She stopped by the railing at the bottom. She looked at her mother, then at me, then back at her mother again. I don't know what she was hoping to find in her mom's face, but it wasn't there. "I think maybe we should all just," her dad started, but Claire cut in. "It's not true." Her voice was flat. "It's not like that." I turned to her. "You want me to show them the messages?" She didn't answer. Her sister Lauren stepped forward. "Claire, what is he talking about?" Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. She had always been the calm one in her family, the reasonable one. It made sense that she'd try to stand there and reason her way out of it. I saw the calculation happening in her head, the weighing of which details to deny and which ones to reframe. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she said softly. That was enough. Her brother Matt, who had been hovering by the kitchen island with a bottle in one hand, shook his head and put it down. "Wait, what? So it did happen?" "I'm not doing this here," she said. "Not like this." "You already are," I said. Someone whispered Jesus Christ from the back corner. I think it was her cousin Erin. I should have felt vindicated. Maybe I did, for a second. But mostly I felt tired. I'd spent the last week inside my own head, second-guessing everything from the color of her lipstick to what nights she said she was working late. It didn't matter anymore. Now it was out. Her mom looked at me like she didn't recognize me. "Why would you do this in front of everyone?" I shrugged. I figured if she was okay lying to everyone, she should be okay telling them the truth. Claire made a short, choked sound and turned toward the door. She didn't run. She never did anything dramatically, but she walked fast enough that someone moved aside to let her through. The door slammed a little too hard behind her. Her dad looked around like he was trying to figure out if this was some kind of prank. Then he followed her out. A couple others trickled after him. Matt, Lauren, her cousin Aaron. That left maybe 9 of us standing in the kitchen and living room, none of us knowing what to do. The cake still sat on the table, the candles now leaning a little to the side from the heat of the room. The writing on the top read, "Happy birthday, Claire," in pink script. It looked ridiculous now. Her coworker Jess came over and put a hand on my arm. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, like it was a funeral. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." People started grabbing coats. One by one, they left. Someone offered to help clean up, but I told them no. I just wanted everyone gone. By the time the house was empty, it was almost 9:30. I sat down at the dining table across from the untouched cake. A couple of Claire's hair ties were still on the sideboard where she always left them. One of her cousins had left behind a gift bag with a gold ribbon on it. I stared at the bag for a long time before I stood up and started blowing out the candles, even though they were never lit. The next morning, the house felt hollow. No hangover from laughter, no birthday leftovers being picked over, no one texting about how wild the night had been, just silence and crumbs. I woke up early, around 6:15, out of habit. I'd slept on the couch. Not because I had to, Claire never came back inside, but because I couldn't bring myself to go into the bedroom where she used to curl up against me before the alarm went off. I was halfway through making coffee when her name lit up my phone. Just her name. No message. I let it ring. Then it stopped. 30 seconds later, she texted, "I'll come get my things after work." No apology, no explanation, just logistics. I typed back, "Let me know first. I won't be here." I didn't add, "I don't want to see you," but it hung there, unsaid. I left the coffee untouched. I couldn't drink it. By 8 o'clock a.m., I was driving in circles. I had no idea where to go. I didn't want to call anyone. I didn't want the pity or the forced advice. I parked near Lakewood Park and just sat in the car, staring at the water through the trees. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. It had started with a late meeting 2 weeks before the party. She said she'd be out until 9:30, maybe later. I didn't think much of it. Her firm had a brutal client pitch coming up, and long hours weren't unusual. But at 10:15, her iPad dinged from the living room. That was unusual. She almost never used it. It must have been synced with her messages, I figured. I wasn't even snooping. I opened it, thinking maybe it was from work. The first thing I saw was a text with no name saved, just a number. "Still thinking about yesterday." Then a photo, her bare legs under our comforter, the one we bought together at Target when we moved in. I remember I hated the color. She insisted. I couldn't breathe. I sat there staring at it for what felt like an hour. Then I scrolled up. There were dozens of messages, some flirty, some casual, some worse. I didn't click every photo. I didn't want to. The last one was from 2 days earlier. "Next time, let's not leave the room all day." I didn't reply. I didn't even touch her iPad after that. Just closed it like it might burn me. When she came home that night, she kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted to watch that show we'd been binging. I said I had work. I watched her the whole time, brushing her teeth, putting on her lotion, tying her hair up in that loose, lazy bun. The bun I used to think made her look effortlessly beautiful. And I felt sick because the woman I thought I knew wasn't standing in front of me anymore. The next few days, I played normal. Not well, but enough. I bought the cake. I coordinated the guest. I sent out a text thread she never saw. And I genuinely tried to believe there was some explanation. The guy wasn't someone I knew. His number wasn't saved. But I traced the area code. It was from a few cities away. I didn't look him up. I didn't want to put a face to it. On Friday, I took the day off work and stayed home. That's when I started thinking about doing it at the party. At first, it was a passing thought, something petty in the back of my mind. But the more I played it out, the more it made sense. If I asked her privately, she could lie. If I asked her in front of everyone, she couldn't. It wasn't revenge. At least not exactly. It was about not feeling insane, about making her say it out loud. Now, with my phone on silent and my heart still beating weirdly fast, I sat in the parking lot and texted one person, Nick, my closest friend. We'd known each other since college. I hadn't told him anything yet. I didn't want to be that guy. Me, "You busy?" Nick, "Meeting in 10. You good?" Me, "Not really." Nick, "Call you at lunch?" I just sent a thumbs up. My throat hurt. Around 4 o'clock, Claire texted again. "I'm outside." I didn't answer. I'd already left an hour earlier, making sure she'd have the house to herself. I didn't want to see her sorting through her clothes or carefully choosing what books to pack. Didn't want to see her hesitate. She must have brought someone. Her car wasn't in the driveway later when I came back, but a few bags were gone from the front hallway. Her spare key was on the counter. She'd taken the blanket, the one from the photo. I stood in the hallway for a long time, looking at the space where her shoes used to be. Her scent still lingered faintly in the air. Familiar, but wrong. Everything I knew was still here. But everything I thought I knew had left. It wasn't over just because she was gone. That Monday, I walked into work and immediately felt like a fraud. I don't know what I expected. Sympathy, a distraction, maybe just 8 hours of not thinking. But everything felt fake. I sat through a morning meeting, barely hearing a word, nodding like I understood the projections on the screen. The only thing I could think about was whether she'd taken the charger that had always been on her nightstand, and if that meant she was really staying gone. By lunch, I couldn't sit still anymore. I told my boss I had a migraine and left. The lie came out easy. Lying was starting to feel normal. I drove around again. I didn't want to go home, but I couldn't think of anywhere else to be. Then I made the mistake of checking her social media. She hadn't posted anything, not on her main page. But I scrolled through tagged photos and found a story someone else had posted from the party. A short video. She was standing by the cake before everything went to hell, laughing, touching her hair. I paused it there, staring at her frozen mid-laugh, the edge of the knife just visible next to the frosting. It felt like watching someone who had already died. That night, I got the first message from a number I didn't recognize. "You happy now?" No name, just that. I blocked it immediately. But then another came in, this time from Lauren, Claire's sister. "You embarrassed her. That's all you really wanted." I stared at it. I didn't A reply. Then her brother Matt texted. He was the only one who'd ever seemed even slightly on my side. His message just said, I get that you're hurt, man, but that was a messed up way to handle it. I tossed my phone across the couch. I didn't break it. I wanted to, but I didn't. The next day, I woke up to an email. It was from Claire. Subject line, let's talk. I opened it. It wasn't long. I know there's nothing I can say to fix what I did, but what you did at the party wasn't fair either. You turned something painful into a public spectacle for everyone, for me, for our families. That wasn't justice. It was punishment. I don't blame you for being hurt, but I can't have a conversation with you unless it's calm. Let me know when that's possible. I reread it 3 times. Not once did she say she was sorry, not directly. It was all positioning, what I did, what she couldn't handle. I didn't write back. Instead, I sat down and finally did. What I'd been avoiding, I printed the messages, 27 pages, front and back, text, timestamps, screenshots of the photos she sent, hotel confirmations, a receipt from a dinner 2 towns over. Everything. I put them in a folder and stuck it in the bottom drawer of my desk. I wasn't planning to show them to anyone. I just needed to see it all in one place. I needed to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. The manipulation wasn't just in the affair. It was how she'd looked me in the eye every day and pretended. She still kissed me goodbye when I left for work. She still asked if I wanted more coffee. She still leaned on my shoulder when we watched TV, all while sneaking around with someone else and then acting like I was the one making a scene when I exposed it. That night, Nick came over. He brought a 6-pack and didn't say anything at first, just handed me a beer and sat down. After a few minutes, he finally said, so, what the hell happened? I told him everything. From the iPad to the party, I didn't hold anything back, not even the ugly stuff. He didn't interrupt much, just listened, nodding slowly. When I was done, he leaned forward and said, you really threw the grenade, huh? I stared at the floor. Yeah. Do you regret it? I didn't answer right away. I don't know. He nodded again. Well, whether you regret it or not, she deserved to be exposed. I just don't think you're going to feel any better for a while. We didn't talk much after that, just sat there, drinking in silence. Before he left, he looked at me and said, don't let her flip this on you, man. She cheated. Remember that. I nodded, but I didn't believe it. Not yet. Because part of me still felt like I was the one who broke something. Maybe I hadn't lied, but I'd made her shame public. I'd humiliated her. And now people weren't choosing sides based on truth. They were choosing sides based on what they saw. And what they saw was me lighting the match. I didn't even realize I was waiting for proof until I got it. Up until then, even with the messages and photos and gut level certainty, part of me kept spinning the what if wheel. What if it wasn't physical? What if they only kissed? What if the hotel was just dinner? What if the photos were old? It didn't matter that those theories made no sense. I still clung to them in the quiet parts of the day when I'd walk past her empty mug on the kitchen counter or catch the smell of her shampoo lingering on a towel she forgot to pack. I wanted a reason to doubt myself, even when I knew better. The proof came 5 days after the party. I was eating a bowl of cereal for dinner when a message landed in my inbox. Gmail. No subject line, just a forwarded email chain. The sender was someone I didn't know, Michael Kent. At first I thought it might be spam until I saw Claire's name in the thread. She wasn't CC'd, just mentioned. The email was from Michael to someone named Daniel, an address I didn't recognize. The chain went back weeks. Michael was forwarding messages between Daniel and Claire. Full, unedited threads, no explanation. I opened the first one, dated a month before the party, from Claire Harding to Daniel Wu, subject, re-Sunday. Still thinking about your hands, your laugh, that weird song you put on when we drove back. I swear I haven't stopped smiling all day. I don't know what we're doing, but I know I don't want to stop. There were dozens more like it. Some short, single-sentence check-ins during her lunch break. Some long and emotional, filled with inside jokes and phrases that meant nothing to me, but obviously meant something to them. One thread had an itinerary attached, reservations for a spa hotel an hour away, along with confirmation for a couple's massage. She had taken that day off work, told me she was going to a team building offsite. One of the emails was from her personal Gmail. The others were from her work address. That part made me laugh, bitterly. She cheated on me using her work email like it was just part of the day's to-do list. The last email in the chain was only 4 lines long. From Daniel Wu to Claire Harding, subject, no subject. I get it, I really do. You had to pick the safer option, the stable one. But I don't think I'll ever forget that night. Or you. Stay warm, Claire. Michael had forwarded it all with one line at the top. Thought you deserved to see this. I sat still for a long time staring at the screen. The bowl of cereal had gone soggy. The heat kicked on and I didn't notice. My hands were cold. Daniel Wu. That name meant nothing to me. I Googled it. Nothing specific came up. There were hundreds of Daniel Wus, no social media pages matched, no photos. But now he had a name, a face in her life, a memory she'd carry. And I had confirmation. It had been real. It had been ongoing. It hadn't been a mistake or a drunken lapse. It had been a relationship one I hadn't known existed, nested inside the one I thought we were building together. I printed the emails, added them to the folder. Then I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said, cautious. I got an email, I said, from someone named Michael Kent. Silence. You want to tell me who that is? She exhaled hard, like she'd been holding her breath. He's a friend of Daniel's, I guess. I don't know. He sent me your emails. I figured he might. Daniel told me someone else had access to his inbox. I just didn't think... She trailed off. Why now? I asked. Why did it end? Another long pause. Then she said, because I knew I couldn't keep living 2 lives. I was going to tell you. After the party. I actually laughed. You were going to tell me after I threw you a party with your whole family? I didn't ask for that. No, Claire, you just asked me to keep pretending everything was fine. You acted like nothing was happening, like I was the liar. She didn't answer. Who else knew? I asked. Anyone I know? Did Jess from work know? Did your sister know? No, she said quickly. Nobody knew. I don't believe you. I didn't talk about him with anyone. It wasn't a public thing. Yeah, no kidding. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive somewhere and break something, but my voice came out low and calm, almost too calm. You're lucky, I said. He made a choice for you. He sent me everything. I don't have to wonder anymore. Then I hung up. I didn't wait for a call back. She didn't offer one. The anger didn't last. I thought it would. I thought having the emails, the messages, the confirmation, having proof would give me fuel. But it didn't. It burned out fast. What replaced it wasn't relief. It wasn't even pain. It was just weight, heavy and cold. I started sleeping later, staying up longer, not because I had anything to do, but because I didn't want to be in the silence of the bedroom. Even with her gone, I felt like I was living in the middle of the lie. Nick came by once or twice that week. He tried to get me out of the house, even just for a drink or a game or a walk. But I always had an excuse. Work, fatigue, errands. Really, I just couldn't stomach the thought of pretending to be normal in public. I couldn't fake interest in sports or weather or the kind of meaningless banter that used to be easy. Every room in the house had traces of her. I kept finding them. A bobby pin under the bathroom sink, a receipt for dog food in the junk drawer. We didn't even have a dog, but she'd been dog sitting for a friend back in October and kept the receipt for some reason. I found a grocery list in her handwriting stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a taco, and I stood there for 5 minutes just staring at the word grapes. Then came the night I saw her again. It was a Thursday. I hadn't been sleeping, so around 10:45 I got in my car and just drove. No destination, just movement. I ended up at a gas station off Westbrook, same one we used to stop at during road trips. I grabbed a drink, walked back to my car, and was about to leave when I saw her. She was across the lot, getting into a black SUV. Not her old Civic, the one she'd driven for years. This one was newer, shinier. Not hers. She wasn't driving. She didn't see me. She was wearing jeans and a long gray coat. She opened the passenger door, got in, and leaned over toward the driver. Someone I couldn't see clearly. Maybe him. Probably him. I sat frozen in my seat, hands on the wheel, keys untouched. My throat went dry. I didn't follow them. I didn't honk. I didn't get out. I just sat there watching the SUV pull away, headlights swinging across the pavement like a spotlight, leaving me behind in the shadow. Back home, I didn't go inside right away. I stood in the garage for a while. Then I sat on the steps in the laundry room and stared at the floor until my legs went numb. I didn't cry. Not that night. The next morning, I woke up to find a note taped to my front door. Claire's handwriting. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry for all of it. I know you think I don't care, but I do. This wasn't supposed to be how we ended. No signature, no contact info, just that. I stood in the doorway reading it in my boxers with the cold air hitting my ankles, and for the first time in days, I did cry. Not the kind of crying that builds up with warning. It hit all at once. Shoulders shaking, no sound, just air and water and pressure, like something inside had cracked. Because it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the goodbye, the confirmation that even now she wasn't coming back. I sat on the floor of the hallway for a long time, holding that note. It wasn't even a full sheet, just half of a torn page from one of those notepads we kept near the landline. Her handwriting was slanted and fast, like she didn't want to write it, but couldn't stop herself. That night, I finally packed her things. Not just the obvious stuff, clothes, shoes, toiletries. I mean all of it. The book she'd stacked on her side of the shelf, the ceramic mug she always used, the charger cable she'd left behind, her yoga mat still rolled up from summer, her leftover shampoo, the framed photo of her and her dad from her college graduation. I boxed it all, labeled each one. Then I drove to her sister Lauren's house and left it on the porch. No text, no knock, just left it and drove. It was a small act, but it mattered. Because for the first time in weeks, it felt like something was mine again, the choice to let go. The consequences didn't come all at once. They came in waves, uneven, and unpredictable, like aftershocks. Just when I thought the worst of it had passed, something else would break loose. The first real one hit at work. I'd been keeping my head down, doing just enough to not draw attention. Most people didn't know what had happened. I hadn't told anyone there, and Claire had already stopped working from the office. She was remote indefinitely, according to Jess, who mentioned it casually like it was nothing. But on Wednesday afternoon, my manager asked me to step into a conference room. HR was there. They were polite, too polite, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They asked how I was doing, if everything was okay at home. Then they explained that a situation had been brought to their attention involving my personal life and another employee's. They didn't say Claire's name, but they didn't have to. Apparently someone, Michael, I assumed, had forwarded parts of the email chain to Claire's firm as well. Not the romantic parts, the logistics, the hotel stays, the use of company email for non-work related activities. There was an internal review happening. They assured me I wasn't in trouble, but they needed to document that I hadn't been involved. I signed a form, I nodded, I left. I sat in my car afterward, gripping the steering wheel, realizing that what happened in my living room had now spilled into places it had no business being. I hadn't sent those emails. I hadn't forwarded anything, but I was still wrapped up in it, still being pulled into her mess. 2 days later, her mother called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. Her voice was tired, worn thin. She said she hadn't slept much since the party, that she kept replaying it in her head, that she wished things had been handled differently. So do I said. There was a pause. Then she said, Claire's not doing well. I didn't respond. She's staying with Lauren. She barely eats. She cries all the time. She keeps saying she ruined everything. I waited for the part where she asked me to fix it, or forgive, or apologize, but it didn't come. I'm not calling to excuse what she did, her mom said. I don't know how to be in the middle of this. You don't have to be, I said. Another pause, then quieter. I loved you like a son. That one landed harder than I expected. I loved her, I said. I still do, but I can't carry this for her. She said she understood. I wasn't sure she did. But she thanked me for taking the call. After that, the tone shifted. People stopped reaching out as much. The messages slowed. Invitations disappeared. I wasn't explicitly cut off, but I wasn't included either. When mutual friends saw me out, conversations stayed shallow, safe. Nobody wanted to talk about the party or the affair or what happened after. It was like everyone silently agreed that the story had reached its end, even though I was still living inside it. One night, about 3 weeks after everything blew up, I got an email from Claire's lawyer. It was brief, formal, a request to discuss separation terms, division of shared property, the lease, our joint account, things we had once talked about casually, assuming we'd always be on the same side of them. I forwarded it to a lawyer I'd found online. I hadn't planned on needing one. But here we were, the meeting was surreal, sitting across from a stranger, talking about my marriage like it was a spreadsheet, what was mine, what was hers, who paid for what, who kept the couch. At one point, the lawyer asked, "Do you think there's any chance of reconciliation?" I didn't hesitate. No. Saying it out loud felt strange, final, but also steady. The last consequence came quietly. I ran into Daniel at a coffee shop downtown, completely by accident. I didn't recognize him at first, just a guy standing a few feet away, waiting for his drink. Then I heard my name. He said it like a question. I turned. He looked exactly like I expected and nothing like I imagined. Taller than me, thinner, nervous energy. He looked uncomfortable the second our eyes met. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I didn't know you were—" "Don't," I said. He nodded. "I never meant to hurt you." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "You didn't break anything that wasn't already broken." That wasn't entirely true, but it was enough. He looked relieved, guilty, all of it at once. "I'm not seeing her anymore," he said. "For what it's worth." "For what it's worth?" I repeated. "Okay." We stood there awkwardly until his drink was called. He picked it up, hesitated like he wanted to say more, then left. I sat down at a table by myself and stared out the window, watching people walk by with their coffees and bags and phones, all of them carrying lives that probably looked normal from the outside. That's when it hit me. The consequences weren't about punishment. They weren't about who won. They were about the fact that nothing was insulated anymore. Everything touched everything else. And there was no going back. Once everything external settled, the lawyers, the paperwork, the awkward run-ins, what was left was the quiet. That was the part I hadn't prepared for. Not the silence of an empty house, but the internal one. The absence of noise where certainty used to be. I stopped trusting my own reactions. That was the first thing I noticed. I'd be in the grocery store, standing in front of the cereal aisle, and suddenly I'd feel exposed. Like everyone around me could tell something was wrong just by the way I was standing there. I'd replay conversations in my head after they happened, convinced I'd said something off, something revealing. I became hyper aware of myself in a way I never had been before. At night, I'd lie in bed and go back through the marriage like it was surveillance footage. I wasn't looking for the affair anymore. I already knew it was there. I was looking for the moment I missed, the signal I ignored, the version of myself who should have known. There was the trip to Portland the year before when she'd been distant the whole time, glued to her phone. I'd assumed work stress. There was the way she'd started guarding her devices, always flipping her phone face down. There was that phase where she suddenly got into running again, buying new gear, changing her schedule. None of it had raised alarms at the time. Now it all felt obvious, like the answer key after the test. That did something to me. It made me suspicious of my own memories. If I could be that wrong for that long, what else had I misunderstood? What else in my life was built on incomplete information? I caught myself questioning my instincts in small, embarrassing ways. If a cashier was overly friendly, I wondered if they were mocking me. If a coworker didn't reply to an email right away, I assumed I'd done something wrong. I started apologizing too much for things that weren't my fault, for things that didn't even exist. Sleep got worse. I'd fall asleep fine, then wake up around 3 o'clock a.m. almost every night, heart racing, brain already running. Sometimes I'd replay the party, sometimes I'd replay the emails, sometimes it was nothing specific, just a vague sense that something bad had already happened and I'd failed to prevent it. One night, I dreamed I was standing in our kitchen while Claire packed boxes around me. I kept asking her what she was doing and she kept saying, "You said this was okay." I woke up sweating, convinced for a split second that I'd actually given her permission to leave. I hadn't, but the dream lingered. I started therapy in that stretch. Not because I wanted to heal or grow or any of the other words people like to use. I went because I didn't trust my own head anymore. I needed a neutral place to put things. The therapist was calm, middle-aged, practiced. She didn't flinch when I told her about the party or the emails or the confrontation. She didn't tell me I was brave. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She just listened. After a few sessions, she asked, "What's the hardest part right now?" I thought about it longer than I expected. "I don't know who I am without her," I said. "And I don't trust the version of me who was with her." She nodded like that made sense. Maybe it did. What I didn't say was that I felt smaller. Not emotionally, physically. Like I took up less space in the world. I walked with my shoulders slightly hunched, like I was bracing for impact. I avoided eye contact more. I laughed less, and when I did, it felt delayed, like it had to travel a longer distance to get out. I also noticed something darker, something I didn't like admitting even to myself, part two. Of me missed the certainty of being angry. Anger had been clean, focused. It gave me something to push against. Without it, everything blurred together. Sadness, embarrassment, resentment, nostalgia. Some days I felt nothing at all, which scared me more than the rest. I tried dating. Not seriously. Just apps, low-stakes conversations, coffee with a woman named Elise, who talked about her dog for 40 minutes straight, a drink with someone else who asked me, 5 minutes in, why my marriage ended. I said it just didn't work out, and immediately hated myself for it. None of it stuck. I wasn't ready. I could tell because every time someone laughed too easily or touched my arm, my first instinct wasn't interest, it was suspicion. What do you want? What don't I know? That wasn't fair to them. So I stopped. The house changed too. I rearranged furniture, took down photos, painted the bedroom a different color, but no matter what I did, it still felt like a place I was borrowing. Like the real owner might come back any minute and ask why I'd moved things. One afternoon, while cleaning out the last box from the hall closet, I found the birthday candles, still in their plastic sleeve, unused. I sat on the floor and turned one over in my fingers, noticing how bent the wick was at the tip. For a moment, I felt ridiculous for having held on to them. Then I felt sad. Then I felt tired of feeling anything about them at all. I threw them away. That night, I realized something important, not comforting, but clarifying. What broke me wasn't the affair. It was the realization that the version of safety I'd built my life around wasn't real. I'd trusted a story more than my own awareness, and now that story was gone. Rebuilding wasn't about forgiving her or understanding her reasons or even moving on. It was about learning how to stand in uncertainty without collapsing, how to listen to myself again, how to accept that sometimes you don't get warnings. Sometimes the ground just gives way. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel healed. But for the first time since the party, I felt honest. And that mattered more than I expected. The decision didn't come with clarity or confidence. It came with exhaustion. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. Gray outside. Cold, but not dramatic. I'd spent the morning answering emails and the afternoon staring at the same document without typing a word. Around 6:30, I closed my laptop and realized I hadn't spoken out loud all day. I made pasta, ate half of it standing at the counter, left the rest in the pan. Then I sat down on the couch and picked up my phone. Claire's name was still there in my contacts. I hadn't deleted it. I told myself it was for legal reasons, for coordination if something came up. But really, it was because deleting it felt too final, like slamming a door I wasn't sure I was allowed to close. I opened our text thread. The last message was from weeks earlier, logistics about picking up mail, neutral, polite, empty. I scrolled up anyway, past the silence, past the fallout, back into the normal days, memes, grocery questions. On my way home. Love you. Did you feed the cat? All of it preserved like it still meant something. That's when I realized what I'd been doing. I wasn't holding on to her. I was holding on to the possibility that she might still explain it in a way that made sense. That one day she'd say something that rewrote the whole story, something that made it less humiliating, less random, less pointless. That wasn't going to happen. I put the phone down and sat there for a long time, hands folded, breathing slow, not dramatic, just deliberate. Then I did three things. First, I deleted her contact. Second, I blocked her number. Third, I emailed my lawyer and told him to move forward with the filing. I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel empowered. I felt quiet, like I'd finally stopped arguing with myself. The next step took longer. I waited a week. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to make sure the decision held. It did. Every day, the absence of contact felt less like restraint and more like alignment. So I boxed the last things I'd been avoiding, the shared photo albums, the letters she'd written me early on, back when everything was earnest and uncomplicated, the wedding gifts we never returned because we thought we'd use them someday. I didn't reread the letters. I didn't open the albums. I wrapped everything in packing paper and sealed the box. I labeled it with her name. Then I dropped it off at her sister's house. Again, same porch, same quiet. That was it. The filing went through faster than I expected. No drawn out fights, no dramatic back and forth. We divided things cleanly, too cleanly. It made the marriage feel smaller than it had been while we were in it, like something that could be summarized in bullet points. When the confirmation email came through, I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I needed to feel the words land, legally separated, pending finalization. I didn't tell many people. Nick knew, my parents knew, a couple of friends. Everyone else found out gradually through absence more than announcements. We stopped showing up as a unit. Then she stopped showing up at all. One night, about a month later, I ran into her mother at the grocery store and she looked older, or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. We stood there by the produce, awkward, polite. She asked how I was doing. I said, okay. She said Claire had moved apartments. She sounded like she was offering proof that her daughter was functioning. I hope you're taking care of yourself, she said. I am, I said. And for once, it wasn't a lie. When I got home, I sat in the car for a minute before going inside. I'd been doing that less lately. I took it as a good sign. Inside, the house felt different. Not empty, neutral, like a space that no longer expected anyone else. I made tea, sat at the table, thought about the version of my life I'd assumed was locked in. The future we talked about casually, like it was guaranteed, kids' names we'd thrown around, trips we'd half planned, all of it gone. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, administrative finality. And still, I didn't feel broken. I felt altered. The decision wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't about punishment or pride or proving anything. It was about acknowledging a line that had been crossed and refusing to spend the rest of my life trying to redraw it. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want closure conversations. I didn't want to hear how complicated it had been or how conflicted she'd felt or how much she'd learned. I wanted my life back, not the old one, a new one that didn't require me to doubt my own perception just to stay comfortable. That night, I slept through until morning. No dreams, no jolting awake, just sleep. When I woke up, the light coming through the window felt ordinary, and that was enough. The decision was made. And for the first time since the candles never got lit, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something else to happen. I didn't know what to do with the freedom at first. It came slowly in the form of empty weekends, quiet mornings, a phone that stopped lighting up with questions about where I was or what I'd picked up at the store. I thought I'd miss that, being part of someone's everyday rhythm. But what I felt instead was a gradual exhale, like I'd been clenching without knowing it for years. I started walking more. No music, no podcasts, just walking. I'd go through the neighborhood after dinner, sometimes for 30 minutes, sometimes longer. I wasn't trying to think. I was trying to notice things again. The sound of sprinklers kicking on, the way the sky changed color. Behind the rooftops, the smell of someone else's dinner through an open window. I hadn't paid attention to those things in a long time. A few months after the paperwork was finalized, Nick invited me to a small get-together, just a backyard thing. 10 or 12 people. I almost didn't go. But I did. The first 15 minutes were rough. Polite smiles, vague small talk, trying not to look like the guy who'd recently detonated his marriage in front of a crowd. Then someone made a joke about fantasy football, and I laughed. Not politely, genuinely. And when I caught myself laughing, I didn't feel guilty. That was new. Later that night, as the group thinned out, someone asked if I had kids. I said no, then added, I was married, I'm not anymore. It didn't feel like a confession, just a fact. He nodded and moved on. Didn't ask why, didn't press. The conversation just kept going. And I realized in that moment that my life didn't have to orbit the wreckage forever. Other people saw it as a piece of my story, not the whole thing. I drove home with the windows down, no music, just the night air. The house looked different when I pulled into the driveway. Same structure, same porch light, same uneven patch of grass by the walkway. But something had shifted in me. It didn't feel like a museum anymore. It felt like a place I lived. Inside, there were no more of her things. I hadn't replaced everything overnight, but the balance had changed. My own photos, a new couch, a plant I was somehow keeping alive. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was neutral, settled. Sometimes late at night, I'd still think about the party, about the exact second the room went quiet, about her face at the top of the stairs, the way her eyes didn't widen, didn't plead, just hardened, like she'd already left, even then. I used to think that night ruined everything. Now I think it just ended what had already collapsed behind the scenes. I don't check up on her. I don't ask mutual friends if she's happy. I hope it's real. If she regrets it, I hope it teaches her something. But that's her burden now, not mine. I carry other things, a sharper sense of what I'll tolerate, a quieter appreciation for ordinary mornings, a deeper respect for the part of me that refused to stay silent when it mattered. I still keep the folder, the one with the messages, the screenshots, the emails, not because I need the proof anymore. I just haven't gotten around to throwing it out. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter as much as it used to. What matters is that I'm not waiting anymore. Not for her, not for answers, not for anyone to tell me I did the right thing. I didn't burn my life down that night. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already on fire. And then I walked out.